Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Tech Field Day at Fortinet. So my name is Philip Qian. I'm a director of product management at Fortinet, and FortiCWP is one of the products that I manage. Together with me today, we have Ming Chiou, who is a technical marketing engineer, and he's gonna help me to do the demo. Okay. So we have a very short agenda since this presentation is only about 30 minutes. So I'm going to quickly give you an overview of FortiCWP, what it is, and then show you some example features, also relates to certain real world security incidents so that you know why we build those features. And then I'm going to hand over to Min for his demo. So start with the topic, what is a cloud workload? Since we have a name, FortiCWP, that if you're not familiar with the acronym CWP, you may find that hard to understand what it is. So CW stands for cloud workload, and the P is protection. There's a product category called CWPP, or Cloud Workload Protection Platforms, that Gartner defined, and FortiCWP is one of those. And the cloud workload, to understand that, if I may start with a computer, which you may have it on your desk or in your data center, and the computer in a box basically has, if I think of it with the three major functionalities: the computing, which is the CPU, the storage part, which is your hard drive, and the networking part to connect you with other computers, right? When you migrate your application to the cloud, it's no longer in that kind of form factor, at least not logically. It becomes stuff like the computing power would be one resource or one workload, and in AWS it's called EC2, and the storage is called S3 bucket, stuff like that. So a cloud workload is basically a discrete capability or amount of work you'd like to run on a cloud instance. You may have another question. So if I move my stuff into the cloud, isn't it that the cloud platforms, the cloud AWS, Azure, and GCP, I'm paying them, shouldn't they be responsible for my security? Well, there is a shared responsibility model promoted by the cloud platforms that basically says you have your share of responsibility regarding security. In the slide, obviously, the amount of responsibility lies in you, differs based on like the system you're running or the service you are using. If I may use a simple example, let's say you want to share some of your files with your friends, and you upload to a S3 bucket. Since you are just want your friend to take a look without modifying it, so you set up your storage or S3 bucket as read-only. And if somehow AWS allows the files in there to be modifiable, which is a read and write access, then AWS is not fulfilling its responsibility, and you can blame them. However, if you put your own or your customer's social security number in a file in that S3 bucket, then that's not AWS responsibility anymore. That's your responsibility. That's why they have this thing called shared responsibility, because the cloud platforms simply cannot assume the liability of the misconfigurations, whether intentional or unintentional, of you or someone in your company, right? So think about if you work in a large financial company and the traders or the department of the traders hired a contracting company to do application for them, and that company doing their things in the cloud and put all this financial data in the cloud without you knowing it, then you would have to find a way to at least, first of all, get visibility and then control it and hopefully fix it and prevent it, right? So that's basically why you need a CWPP product, and FortiCWP is a cloud-native security tool providing actionable recommendations. You will see examples of what it means, and the dashboards and the reports based on the data we collect from the cloud platforms that you are running. So Mechanism-wise, FortiCWP pulls data from the cloud APIs. It runs inside AWS itself. So FortiCWP is actually a cloud native application itself. And it monitors today. Today we support the big three cloud platforms. And that includes Azure and Google Cloud. And then the customer is security admins, security architects. So that's basically FortiCWP in a nutshell. The key benefits, visibility, you have to know what your cloud workloads is doing, what kind of data is in there, whether or not there's a misconfiguration or security risk. In certain cases, we remediate. We either provide steps for you to remediate, or in certain cases, we auto-remediate for you if we think the auto-remediation method will not cause any negative side effect. We also provide compliance discovering and reporting. For example, we provide data to compose a PCI and GDPR report so that you can show your auditors what you do regarding those regulations. Here are the menu on the left side. You can navigate through the product. Usually, just as other products, there are settings. So you want to configure the access to the cloud. There are dashboards that are showing you the reports and certain widgets. But at the core of the product is the policies. So the policies are like rules you want to apply to your cloud workloads. And there are 5 major groups of policies. We have risk assessment, which contains 258. Data analysis has 34 built in. Meanwhile, you can add your own by customizing the regex matching strings. And there are 8 threat protection, 17 networking, and 7 compliance. Note the numbers, we keep working on them. So next time, if I get a chance to talk to you again, you may see the numbers increasing. The total today is more than 300. So think about product. If you use the product and deploy it to your cloud infrastructure, what it basically does is to do rounds and rounds of checking of those rules or policies against your cloud workload. So there may be a rule or policy that says your EC2 should not allow a particular port. So it's going to check all the EC2s with that rule. So let's say you got 1,000 workloads. Each round of checking, I wouldn't say it's 300,000 because some of the rules only apply to a limited set of cloud workloads, but I can say it's in the order of 300,000. And if you have 1 million cloud workloads, right, you grow tremendously of your cloud infrastructure, then the checking would be in the order of 300 million. 300 million. So 1 million workload sounds like a big number, but just think about Netflix. Netflix is reported to have at least 100,000 servers in Amazon. And I assume that servers means EC2s. So they may have another 100,000 of VPCs, another 200,000 of SES3s. So 1 million is definitely within reach. And the good thing about this one is FortiCWP actually grows with your cloud infrastructure, and you can buy with like 20, as little as 20 VMs as a unit. And then as you add more and more, you only pay the amount that for your actual deployment size.
Maybe one point just to add there, Philip, just connecting back, I think, Karen, you were asking this question before. So on the previous slide here, the idea was that just to share a little bit more about threat investigation. So the category of these types of policies are more about, so when you think of it, if a user accesses the cloud environment, right, there may be some weird behavior, such as a one user account logging in from London and then within an hour logging in from the US, as an example. So we would track these type of activities and say, okay, this is weird. This user is maybe there's some kind of a credential compromise or something for this user. Something's wrong, and then you can really track back to all the user activities. So I'm just maybe Philip, if they're kind of giving other examples of the threat investigation policies, just for Karen's benefit.
Yeah, we do have that policy. Unfortunately, I don't have that in my slides. The policy actually, if you see the just look at the screen, the middle screenshot with a map. That one, we have a policy that can detect the login location for one ID. So if let's say you got an ID, login ID, log in to have some activity that an hour ago was in New York, and then all of a sudden it went to London, then we can show you that abnormal behavior.
Maybe you could talk like HIPAA compliance. There's a number of constraints required around that, data access and that sort of thing, data longevity. Are those the sorts of policies that would be in a HIPAA compliance rule base, or?
So the regulation compliance reports in there, we're basically showing you certain data that's needed, and you can present them to the auditors. This tool, as of today, is not intended to be your HIPAA defense tool, right? We're not there yet. So it's a data provider kind of thing. So I was trying to show you some example features since so far what I've talked about is pretty abstract. And in the example features, you will see what it means for the people who actually use the product. All right, so I'll start with a very old school one, vulnerability management. So you had this one in your on-prem system, right? When you move your workload into the cloud, you still have the same issue that you may have a Linux system in your Amazon EC2 that has a data buffer overflow vulnerability, right? So I'm mentioning this, start with this one because it's important for the next use cases, which we call attack surface view. So in Neil's opening presentation, he talked about the digital transformation, introduce bigger attack surface, right? And cloud migration is obviously one of those things that you would have to the customers would have to deal with it. Since in the past they could have a firewall as their primary perimeter defense tool, and their machines inside the firewall are pretty much safer than the ones outside. However, when you move all those into the cloud, now you may have multiple EC2s exposing on the internet without a firewall on the outside, right? So the attack surface view contains two things. It has a vulnerability tab, which I'm showing here, and the content is what I showed in the previous slide, that you have a buffer overflow vulnerability in your Linux lib. And then the next tab, which is internet reachable, what we call it, name it today. We're basically saying on this particular instance, you have a certain process listening on certain port, and that is reachable from the internet. So why this is important? So think about a hacker if they wanted to breach into your cloud infrastructure. Usually what they do is they start with something called a reconnaissance, right? They find a machine that they can connect to. So they will need to somehow connect to your machine. And if you have a process listening on a port, that's something they can start with. And if they have that, and then you have a buffer overflow vulnerability, then they can potentially use it to, for example, escalate their account privilege. And from there, they get into network and access your mission critical data. So attack surface view gives you a collection of those machines that have both vulnerability and reachable from the internet. And for the people who does the incident response, this is probably the on the higher priority list that you wanted to remediate so that you have less risk. So that's one of the use case. And the other use case is that once a breach occur, and they do occur, and you want to track the hackers' access activities. For example, did they access certain file to get certain information? So we provide the feature to track your file access activities, who uploaded the file, who modified the file, who accessed the file, since this can be useful in your forensic analysis. And quite often, if you do this early on small breaches, then you can prevent the bigger breaches from happening. So,
just a quick question. When we're talking about files, we're talking about S3 object files?
Yeah, those are in the S3 buckets.
Okay. Okay, so we're not talking about file system level work inside EC2 instances. Okay.
Right. So the next example is for some machines, there are best practice to follow. For example, in this case, a best practice is the Agile virtual machine should not allow global permission to access SMB port. And in this kind of case, we even provide remediations. In this particular case, it's a sort of manual remediation. And in some cases, we have auto remediation. The difference is being, in those cases, we think the potential side effects are manageable. So we do auto remediation for you. But regardless, there are step-by-step guide in those rules. So if you do get an alert that says your particular virtual machine allows global permission to access this port, you can follow the remediation steps to fix it. And why? I'm choosing this example because SMB port 445 was used by WannaCry worm. So if you do have this port wide open, you are basically inviting that particular ransomware. Another example, privileged account management. This one is part of the PCI. Again, because hackers often need to escalate their account privilege. So if you have certain things like someone has updated the policy with a privileged account, we provide audit log, again, providing you methods to do forensic analysis. Privileged account is one of the methods. Privileged account manipulation or escalation is one of the methods often used. For example, in a breach of a major hotel chain just a couple of years ago, this method was used based on the report I read. I don't know how many minutes, how many time I still have, but there are just a few examples on risky deployment. So we provide alerting on intentional or unintentional risky configurations. For example, look at the last one on this page. VM disks should be encrypted. So if you have a VM disk that's not encrypted and you happen to put sensitive file on it, then it's a major security risk. So we alert you on those kind of misconfigurations.
I have a quick question for you about the alerts. Can you tune those to say, hey, I want to make an exception that I know about this issue, but it's okay on machine X, Y, or Z?
So we have a something called a allowed list, block list. So for certain things you could exclude. Yeah. So there are things like you can use to fine tune those kind of so that you don't get spammed by the tool. Is that
exactly?
What yeah. So we do have some of those for you to use. I think this one is my last example before I can go back to the questions. So sensitive data loss prevention is again for the files you stored in your bucket. If you have social security number, driver license number, stuff like that in there, we do regex scanning on those sensitive data. This, of course, it helps for you to prevent, breaches in general, since anything with those kind of data attracts hackers. Also, this one would provide data points for you to show your GDPR regulation auditor, for example, right? Ming actually has in his demo, he's gonna show you something about this particular use case.
So in this case, you're actually opening up VMDKs and that sort of stuff, and looking at the data to ascertain whether they have social security numbers or other information in them. Is that what this is doing?
we access the files stored in the S3 buckets.
In S3 bucket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we do regex matchings.
A lot of these workloads can have lots of data. This sort of deep data inspection, I'll call it, could be very performance intensive or take a long time.
Yes. So there's a switch. I don't have a screen to show you, but there's a switch that you can enable or disable a particular policy. So let's say you find this particular rule really consuming your time, the computing power. And in some cases, for example, if you have the file stored in Agile and FortiCWP runs in AWS, so in order for us to do this matching, there will be like a data transfer. So in that case, you found it either too costly or not so important to you, then you could actually disable the rule. So you don't have to run everything.
That brings up another question. You said that the service runs in AWS, but actually provides support for GCP and Azure as well as AWS?
Yeah.
So if we're doing this sort of deep data inspection from data on GCP or Azure, we're getting egress charges?
Yeah, in certain cases, yes. So since the data has to be transferred, if your source data is in GCP, for example, it has to be transferred to AWS. But think of it this way. Let's say this particular system runs in your data center, then you have to pass data from GCP to the data center. The only way that these egress charges can be avoided is to run FortiCWP in every cloud platform or even every region you have in your with your application. So today we're not there yet. So maybe in one day we can do that. So we run a FortiCWP instance next to your data, and then that's gonna help to avoid the data charge.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for you. Are you able to inspect other storage, other file system types like EFS or FSX, other types of storage that are native to those cloud platforms?
This one would be depending on the API. If the API provides the data content, then we will be able to do a regex matching. If the API does not, then we won't. So for the particular examples you mentioned, I would have to go back and then check the technical details. But in general, it's basically whatever FortiCWP can do is limited by the cloud platforms. But we look at cloud platforms as just as in a traditional system, like for example, a Linux system, right? You run a Linux application, whatever the application can run is limited by the data provided to by the underlying operating system. So in the case of FortiCWP, it's limited by the underlying cloud system. Fortunately, all of things are changing. Like AWS is releasing things every week or so. GCP is doing the same. So the toolbox here we're looking at, even though it's not like there are a lot of things we want to do, we are limited either by our own bandwidth or by the underlying API, but things are looking better every day since people realize the importance of the tool and the APIs are giving us more and more data.
And to add another note, we have other solutions like FortiSandbox that provides integrations to like Elastic Block storage and such that some of our customers use. And these solutions specifically for data inspection, and these solutions can run inside that specific cloud region as well. So this is one piece which is more, again, protecting at the cloud service level and less from an inline level as you would expect from an Elastic Block storage type solution.
So can this tool receive any telemetry from those other tools that you mentioned?
At this point, they are not. It is not that one view to rule them all yet, but definitely things we're looking into.
Yeah, it's FortiCWP is a relatively a new product of Fortinet. We formally released at the second half of last year, but we look at it as a very important tool for our customers during the migration to the cloud.
I'd like to see it. Ming, you got a demo?
Yeah, he got a demo. So the quick takeaway I would like you guys or the people on Facebook to have is that migration to cloud computing obviously presents new challenges to you, since your old security tool, a lot of those no longer apply. And FortiCWP provides visibility, security, and compliance controls. So those are three main features that we provide to your workloads. And if you have an existing on-prem centric security tool, then you can use this to complement for your cloud portion when you do the migration. Or for some of the companies, if you guys start from cloud, you're a cloud native, then you may use this one as your primary tool, since FortiCWP itself is also a cloud native system. So
this is a recorded demo. So just going to walk through some of this. So the agenda today is detecting publicly exposed storage, remediating that exposure, and then detecting malicious content, and then also detecting sensitive PII content that's in storage. And today's demonstration will be in an S3 bucket. Why is that important? As you can see from these headlines, right, there more and more use of public storage, and permission requirements or settings are all over the place, and data leaks are happening. So this is the dashboard of CWP. The left-hand side has all the menu items. You can see the service information, the accounts that we're monitoring, right? AWS, GC, and then Azure. Storage level exposure, the amount of the alerts for malware scan and DLP scan, and other host of information. So there's a rich set of information that's there on the dashboard. So next we want to see adding the account. I've already added it. It's pretty straightforward. We've added a AWS account called CFD8, and providing some detailed information there. Once that's done, we want to start scanning the bucket container, right? We go to that tab, select the CFD8 container or bucket that you want to scan, turn on the licensing for storage G. You get a successful message, and then click on Start Scan to start scanning. And again, you get a successful message, and then you also see a pending to be scanned message as well to the right there. And once that gets going, we can go quickly check on the account, right? Specifically for that bucket, search for it. And as you can see there, the scan has completed. Granted, this is a test account, so it went pretty quickly. And we're looking at that bucket, and you can see that the public tag is showing. So it's everyone's able to read that bucket, right? So we come back, and after the scan, the public read alert has incremented. So to drill down to that, we'll click on that and get more information on that specific alert. All right, we're gonna select the CFD8 account, submit that. Here's the information highlighted with malware, sensitive, and public read alerts. And again, drilling down some more, looking at the risk assessment, this is listing all the policies that it's violated, right? So right there is a S bucket 3 should not be publicly available. Same thing in the alert, the first top line right there. And we can drill down into the alert and get more information as well. So you can see the account type, alert, information that's being displayed here, right? And then the description at the bottom that says S3 bucket are publicly available and also can contain sensitive data. So how to remediate is you click on the policy name, it'll take you to the policy itself. And Philip showed this earlier, so there's a remediation tab giving you directions to manually remediate if you want to do that, to disable, public availability of that S bucket. The other way to do it is to auto allow. So we can go to the context tab, and in here, we can select a specific bucket that we want to auto fix. So we're just going to do it for CFD8 here, and click on the slide bar for allow auto fix and save that policy. So moving forward, we'll auto remediate for that specific CFD8 account. So anytime if users, add more buckets and it's publicly readable, we'll fix that. Right here, I'll just go back to the bucket and just doing a quick refresh to make sure that the public tag is no longer there, right? So after a couple of refresh, you can see that that has been removed from the S3 bucket console. Coming back to the dashboard, we can click on, again, the alerts page, search for that account, and nothing shows up because it's been auto remediated and the alert automatically removed. So that's a quick view for the publicly available bucket stuff. And then we'll go to the malware scan, and in here we'll see the alerts for all the malware scanning. And again, for CFD8 right there is the first one, that file for demo RDP kill. We click on that, you get some more information, and you can see, the file name, region, so on and so forth. And then in the data pattern, we're analyzing that and detecting malware, riskware in that file. So that's why this has been alert, this alert has been generated. And on the activities side of it, it's a little light since this is a test scenario. Philip had a screenshot of more, activity information of usage and who's accessed it. The last one I want to show you is basically the DLP, or sensitive information scanning, that took place with that scan on that bucket. So those first three items for the CFD8 account, the names are pretty self-explanatory, social security number, birthday, and credit card information. So we'll drill down into the first one. And again, you get all the static information of file name, bucket, region, so on and so forth, and the data pattern violation, birthdays, social security number. So this is a whole host of information that's in one file, but just to show you the technology or the scanning that's done in the back end. So this is all metadata that's been derived from scanning the original file, right? You had asked about that, talked about that. So we do not retain that file. We just retain the metadata that's been scanned from that file pattern and showing you in this alert. So in conclusion, this is, kind of a takeaway. So it's pretty easy to, set up the account and be able to scan it, find publicly exposed storage, remediate it, whether manually or auto fix, detecting malicious content, and also detecting sensitive PII content as well. So that's it for the demo. I know it was quick and fast, so if you guys have questions, go ahead.
So the policies that for that PII detection or sensitive data protection, this product comes preloaded with a bunch of them?
Yes, I should.
You don't need to show me.
Oh, so. Yeah, I think the default ones are, Canadian, US, driver's license, credit card, social security, and all that. So yeah, you can add different country types as well. So pattern matchings. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one. Earlier you showed being able to select an account. If I select the master payer account, does it then pull info from all other accounts that are accessible?
Yeah, you mean from when you add the account? Yes, it needs to be an admin account for you to, start pulling information from there.
But I mean, if I have a master payer account in AWS and then I have a few sub accounts, will it automatically connect to those other sub accounts as well?
Yes, there's a feature called add a account with a AWS organization that deals with the situation you just described. So we realized that people may have a master account that handles the payment situation or the payment activity, but the sub accounts are the accounts that actually does the work. So in order to save the effort of not load each and every sub accounts, we do support importing the organization so that you can sort of batch importing all the accounts.
Thank you.
So what about licensing? You showed us a whole bunch of great stuff. So how much do I have to pay to get it? Can I paid one price?
Well, in general, I can give you our salespeople's contact to you about the actual number. In general, the license of this is based on the number of workloads, actually the number of EC2s, because we look at all the workloads. We think some of those like AWS resources are not as important as EC2. So we use EC2s as the basic unit, and you can buy in the number of each basic unit you can support. We monitor 20 EC2s.
Yeah, I can add maybe a little bit more color to that, just slightly more. So we're actually priced very, very competitively here, because of the fact that we do monitor only EC2 instances. So think of having a worker node that has multiple Kubernetes instances in it, or kind of containers in it. So we only look at the worker node and at the EC2 instance. So that's kind of where the price is. So 20 workloads for the base price. And then there is a separate set of pricing for the data, which goes by the amount of data that is protected. So there are two license strings here. One is the again, per workload protection, and the other one is per the data that is protected.
So do I have to pay a license for the entire FortiCloud, or is it licensed per feature?
No, it's for all FortiCWP. FortiCloud is the broader set of everything cloud delivered from Fortinet, but FortiCWP is all the features, right? And then the amount of data. And I think there was a comment that was made before about the cost of processing all this data. We definitely factor that into the pricing, of course. I mean, a customer that has terabytes over terabytes and petabytes of data is not the same as in terms of our scanning than a customer that has just a few gigs. So that's kind of a different access. But then again, the workloads access, and again, we're very, very competitively priced here on the workload side because of the fact that we're only looking at EC2 instances.
And that makes total sense, but for me to get all of the protection that you guys offer from all the different products you showed me, I have to pay a different licensing price for each one?
So there are a few, if you're referring to all the products as FortiWeb and all its API and web application security, FortiGate and all its, these are different products. Mm-hmm. The good thing is that for our enterprise customers, we offer enterprise agreements that are all-encompassing and kind of give them the ability to go much faster, much quicker, much bigger, and kind of factor in their overall complexity of their environment.
Okay, thank you.
And who do you guys see as your competitors in this space? Is it like Amazon Macy? Is it Cloud Checker? Who do you compete with?
No, not Amazon. We competed with Palo Alto Networks and Checkpoint.
Namely, Redlock, one, Dome9, another, Divi Cloud, another. I mean, the CWPP space, if you look at it, there are dozens of different products there. It's a very dense environment. The interesting thing is that this space, every product is different than the other. But if you look at it from an overall perspective, we definitely see kind of Palo Alto and Checkpoint is probably the closest to our offering because of the fact that they have network security and cloud platform security. But the piece that none of them have would be the web application and API protection. So none of them have that full coverage from an overall attack surface perspective. So yeah, I think it was a very interactive day, and I don't know that there's necessarily a whole lot to touch on, but definitely there are a few areas we wanted to maybe dive a little bit deeper in some other time, which were a little bit more around AI, a little bit more around DDoS, potentially touching on a few more use cases on the FortiGate VM itself and the how do we accelerate and how do we get to the performance levels that we are. So happy that these points have created interest and sparked questions. I do want to maybe just re-emphasize, and again, Fortinet, we have a very large amount of customers that we are committed to. As I mentioned, coming close to 500,000 customers these days. This is a pretty large amount. We're very attentive to our customer requirements, and we're also very focused on organic growth of our technologies, and you can see that through the FortiCWP is a good example. It's a relatively younger product, but we're building it in-house. We're seeing good traction. It's complementing the overall offering for our customers very well. And ultimately speaking, I mean, there's so many ripples in this cloud security space. It's moving so fast, and not everyone knows what is the right technology, what is going to be the right way and right security approach. We're known to be very fast development, R&D, and innovation, and kind of implementing and building technology, but we're definitely listening to the market, and our approach is to satisfy our customers in the longer run and be there for them, to be that kind of platform security provider for them in the longer run, and being able to provide them that good attack surface coverage across with that good operational efficiency across. And that's why you're going to see, why you're seeing, again, for one hand, that broad attack surface coverage from the cloud platform itself. You're going to see more innovations around that. Stay tuned around this year, big announcements coming up on the web application and API protection side. On the network security side, just this week, we've announced, as Vinod mentioned, the multi-cloud SD-WAN. We're kind of starting to play a active role, helping our customers build consistent architectures end-to-end. We're very, again, as I mentioned, committed to the long run and the long haul success of our customers and helping be their partner in this. And you're not necessarily going to find us with the one little widget in every piece of the technology map, but you're going to find us more consistently innovating, developing, engineering, and building solutions to our customers, very attentive to our customers, to be that long-term partner of theirs and that #1 cybersecurity company. Again, we're kind of growing in that very steady state, steady rate, remaining profitable, investing back in the business. It's a very thoughtful approach and way for us. Sometimes I know we get under the radar from a marketing perspective, but we keep busy and working to help our customers, and I think that's probably the important thing to take away here. I hope there were a few interesting innovations, I think, that came out of this.